My name's Doreen. I was diagnosed with SLL in 2007 and I was 50 at the time. I was a nurse, so I did know a little bit about leukemias, but I didn't know much in the way of detail. So I went ahead and looked on the internet like most of us do and found out as much as I could about CLL. There was very little about SLL, and that is something that I think has always been an issue for me, because people say there's CLL and there's SLL and then just talk about CLL. Watch and wait I actually found quite helpful, because it meant that I didn't have to go bang into treatment. I had time to learn about it, I had time to get my head around it, and that for me was really good. And in fact, someone said to me, don't count it as watch and wait, or watch and worry as people sometimes call it, but watch and learn. And that was certainly what I did during my watch and wait period. I read up, and I still do, read up what is coming out in new drugs, what the local research is, and that's really important to me, to have a good understanding. It gives me a sense of empowerment as well, and then when I talk to my doctor, hopefully we can talk and I can understand what he's talking about. I found that I simplified what CLL was. I tended to tell people that I either had a blood cancer or that I had lymphoma, because trying to explain that SLL was a type of CLL, which was a type of low-grade non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, was a bit of a mouthful. Explaining that I was on watch and wait and not having treatment was harder, and I remember I had somebody turn around and say to me, well, you haven't got proper cancer then if it's not being treated. I found that quite hard, and to say, well, yes, actually it is. It's just that the research shows that you don't treat straight away, and this is absolutely the right thing to do. I never found going to the hospital stressful at all. In fact, I found it really quite reassuring. I would write down how I'd felt, how often I'd had infections. I'd write any new lumps and bumps that I had or any new symptoms. So I would go armed with that, and I always used to find it really reassuring. We'd just go through the things. I would write the answers that my consultant gave me next to it, so I had a good record, so when I got home I knew exactly what had been said. I always had my husband with me as well, and that was helpful, because then I'd get his perspective about what the answers were. And actually I used to say I'd enjoyed them. That was probably the wrong thing to say, but actually I'd come away and think, oh, that's good, I'm all right for another 3 months, we could go and book a holiday now because I'm fine. The thing where you do worry is where you get unexplained pains. So for instance, if I had a bit of sciatica or a dull pain around my kidney, fortunately, I've got an excellent GP who would always see you and was very reassuring. The other thing I used to do was email my clinical nurse specialist and say, hi, I've got a dull ache around my kidney. It's been there for 2 weeks. Do you think I should do anything about it? And she would either forward my email on to the consultant, or she would phone me up or email me back and say, no, that's fine. So that was a really good way. So rather than sitting there and worrying about something, I would leave it a few days or a week, depending on what the issue was, and then I would ask, because there's no point in sitting worrying and waiting for your next outpatients. If you've got a concern, I think you should just address it. There were 3 key things I think I had to live with my SLL day to day. Firstly was the fatigue, and that was really tough, to the point that eventually I did give up work. And then as my tiredness got worse, I would have to have a sleep in the afternoon, and I would limit what I did. My other symptom that I had was real discomfort. I'd start to eat and I'd feel uncomfortable, and I always felt that I was rubbing my tummy. And my third symptom was the big nodes. The ones in my neck, I was very aware of it, but my husband said, oh, they don't worry. So I'd often wear a little scarf around my neck. And the other one was a great big one I had under my arm, and that one I would never wear a little t-shirt like this. I would always wear something with sleeves, because I was so aware of these big lumps and bumps. I had a new consultant because my old consultant retired. He said, look, I think it might be time to have a scan. So I went and had the scan and felt quite okay about it. When the results of that came back, he said, the bulk of your lymph nodes are getting quite big now. My bloods were still absolutely fine. He said, I think it might be time for treatment in about 6 months, maybe a year. So I had that in the back of my mind. And after 9 years of watching and waiting, I knew that it was going to come, that I would have treatment, and so I was fine with it. Eventually I had 4 rounds of FCR and then it was stopped because I became so neutropenic. There was concern that my bone marrow might not recover, and I was actually really happy with that, because following my chemotherapy and my immunotherapy, I felt so well. I had no lasting side effects from it. I had a scan which showed that I was in a good remission, and that was really exciting to know. So yeah, I feel good now, and anybody that would ask about the fear of going into treatment, yes, it is scary as you stand on that cliff waiting for it all to happen, but actually in reality you take each month as it goes and it's not as bad as you first think it might be. When I was first diagnosed, of course it's a real shock, because I think we all think when we're told we've got cancer we're going to die, and you start thinking, oh, I'd like to see my children married, I want to see my grandchildren, and all those things that you just would have anticipated in life would happen. Suddenly you think this might not happen. But as time goes on, you gradually settle down and realise that actually life can go on for many years, and both of my daughters are now married, both of them have got children, and life is good. For me, those first 10 years, it was a gradual downhill with my health because I was getting so tired and so uncomfortable. So actually SLL was on my mind most of the time. There was probably not more than a day or two went without me actually thinking about it. However, since treatment, it's completely changed. Because I feel so well, I now don't even think about it. Okay, I have appointments every 4 months, but it's not on my mind anymore. I don't have to think, oh, I'm uncomfortable, oh, I need to plan, I need to sleep. I just get on with life, and it's really good.